Sports Professor Rick Horrow. Happy New Year again. Beyond the scoreboard, inside the business of the trillion-dollar sports world, news, marketing, administration, deal-making, law, everything else. If you want to see all of the items for this week, including our 19 best to watch for 2019, look at NBCWashington.com, at Rick Horrow, HorrowSports.com, all the places you would normally get this, or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Audio Boom, Stitcher, iTunes feed, all the normal places we get this. And if you want it all in one place, I would commend the site and really kind of look at this all. Big week, obviously, college football, its zenith, incredible NFL football games with some good business touch attached to it. Obviously, the NHL off to a great start with the Winter Classic. NBA survives and thrives around Christmas. Australian Open and golf starting again. Soon golf majors, and it's all about the business and it's all about the dollars. The first thing that happens, college football. Obviously, a big weekend and a big national championship. The numbers don't look as good in Santa Clara, primarily because of tickets. Alabama's win over Oklahoma in the Capital One Orange Bowl went out to a 28-0 lead for Alabama. If you remember, total audience of less than 20 million, down from 21.1 million last year. And what's more, by midweek, seats at Levi's Stadium for the CFP championship game had dropped below 120 on the secondary market. The low number of tickets sold, likely confluence of the long distance for the Tide and Tigers fans to travel, and college football fan apathy about watching Alabama and Clemson play for the fourth consecutive season and the third time they'll play for the title. Regardless, Executive Director Bill Hancock of the playoff says he doesn't envision expansion of the CFP happening during its current contract. By the way, that contract runs through 2026. The playoff format extremely popular. A release just put out by the executive director of the playoff organization. Everybody is singing from the same hymn book.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Year contract, and it's a 12-year contract. It is, and probably shouldn't change, and we should agree with this, year to year based on the number of teams that people feel worthy any given year. This year, I think it's more of the fact that most fans who decide to go to these games understand, unlike the Final Four, they got to think about two different cities if their team is going to go to the title. And especially if one is during a holiday and one is the first week back, what are you going to choose? I don't think it's an indictment of college football at all. I just think it's an inevitable circumstance of what all of these issues deal with as far as the business and numbers of college sports. Here's a business and number. Learfield and IMG College, the now complete merger. The two sports marketing giants begin the new year as one fully merged company, signaling a new era in collegiate marketing and media. Learfield President and CEO Greg Brown oversees the Learfield IMG College going forward. Company based in Plano, where Learfield is headquartered, and the merger 50-50 between Learfield, owned by Atarios Group, and IMG College. And combined, Learfield IMG owns multimedia rights to 55 of the 65 schools in the Power Five, and more than 200 schools all told. The closely watched deal was signed in October 2017, but the longer-than-expected merger review by the Justice Department left both businesses operating separately until now. The merged company, believed to be valued at more than $2 billion, and will wield an outsized influence in collegiate sports media rights deals for many, 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 many years to come. Well, I'll tell you, the college football season has been great, but the NFL, astronomical. And those who predicted the downfall of the NFL may be reconsidering, at least from a rating standpoint. NFL stopped a 2-year rating slide and increased its audience across all broadcast windows during the regular season, which ended last week. Games averaged about 15.8 million viewers, an improvement of 800,000 or 5% on last year. And according to John Wall Street, NBC's 13th season of Sunday Night Football up 7%, keeping it on pace to be the number one show in prime time for a record 8th straight year. Comparatively, the run already eclipsed 6 years of American Idol and 5 of The Cosby Show and All in the Family. As the playoffs move on to the divisional matchups, the NFL also announced that it selected Caesars as its first casino sponsor. Casino properties, celebrity chefs, premier musical acts, a wide range of entertainment elements, not gambling. Yet, the agreement extraordinary when you consider that less than 2 years ago, the NFL considered any connections to gambling whatsoever to be the ultimate taboo. And the NFL obviously thinking about a number of ways to expand its reach. For the first time, they've launched a standalone voice app that'll serve and guide fans through the 2019 NFL playoffs and postseason. According to TechCrunch, the league tested voice credibility and capability in their NFL in 60-second app. But this will be the first time that an NFL app is a voice-dependent one. The helper was built in-house by the NFL's digital lab in the only first phase of the league's larger voice-based media strategy. Fans who enable the voice skill on the app will have access to more than 1,000 football and NFL-related teams and related to rules, positions, formations, equipment, personnel, schedules, scores, even Super Bowl history will be available on the app. Both long and short-term response options, and possibly the images and videos for devices with screens, and even a 5-minute product called Game Plan. Although many third parties offer up NFL information through Alexa, the league now can handle their own customer experience through an innovative and informative voice app. So the NFL clearly getting more technical and clearly also focusing on revenue. But let me tell you, no matter what, the NFL is best at creating platforms for social change, and they'll only do that with people who can express the image the way the NFL and others want it to be. Brings up Curtis Martin. Had the ability and honor to get to know Curtis Martin. Obviously, Hall of Fame in 2012, 5 Pro Bowls, but not only 14,000 rushing yards and 3,300 receiving, but the Bart Starr Man of the Year in 2006, the Ed Block Courage Award in 2001. He missed 10 of his last 22 college games at Pitt with injuries, and 9 running backs were drafted ahead of him that year. Guess what? His fortitude, his commitment, a game changer, a really, really interesting person on and off the field, Curtis Martin.
Rick Horrow, absolutely honored to be joined by Hall of Fame football player and Hall of Fame philanthropist Curtis Martin. The City Hall announcing the new field that he's aligned with Dan Towers Group 1001 and the Ripken Foundation to do in his hometown. Curtis, thank you very much for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we took a tour of your home area of Homewood, and we are amazed at the changes that this field will help develop, but also describe what it was like growing up in that neighborhood and being Curtis Martin growing up at Homewood.
Well, look, I don't think my experience was any different than anyone else growing up there. I think we've all had to deal with a certain amount of violence that is somewhat known in that area. Just to give a little background, my grandmother, who was like my mother, who lived in that area, we found her murdered with a knife in her chest and eyes wide open and a broken neck and everything.
When you were how old?
9 years old. Since then, I probably had 38 35 to 40 friends or family members that have not just died, but have been murdered. Last year I was there, and I was visiting this house of a family that I used to stay at a lot when I was younger. And I decided that since I had my 3 and 5-year-old girls with me and my wife, that I would take them by the field to show them where Daddy used to play football when he was younger. We rode up there. I ended up getting out of the car, shaking some hands, signed a couple of autographs, had a good conversation with a few people, stayed for maybe 10, 15 minutes. When I left, I got a text that said a little girl had just got shot in the head and shot in the foot. And the one thing that struck me was that it's been like this since I was a kid, and which is almost 4 decades ago. And I just wanted to start the process of bringing some type of safety to that environment so that kids could go out there and play a game of football and not have to worry about returning home safe.
Well, and your mom had a lot to do with where you are today, clearly.
Yes.
She encouraged you to play football, even though you may not have been that excited about playing football early on. Tell that story.
Well, I didn't want to play football. The head coach, who was also the gym teacher at the school I went to, Taylor Alderdice, had asked me to play every year, and I told him, no, I don't feel like rolling around in the dirt, whatever it meant. You know, that was my comment about football. Well, at the same time, my childhood best friend, someone mistaken identity, jumped out of the car with a shotgun and shot him in his chest, and he ran about 50 yards and collapsed and died. My mother came to me and said, listen, I'm just grateful that you're alive. You know, my mother's been killed, my sister's been killed, my brother is in jail. If something happens to you, they might as well kill me also. That was her remarks. And she said, I want you to do anything after school just so that
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
not in the neighborhood, hanging out in the neighborhood. Football was just the thing that came most natural, so I reluctantly did it.
Go to Pitt, injured a lot,
Yes.
still one of 9 running backs drafted, 8 before you, as I think I understand.
9 before me.
9 before you. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
or 10. And so you made the decision to leave, obviously before that, college. And Bill Parcells said some interesting things to you as well, so tell that story.
Well, from what I understand, the story goes that I was injured so much during my collegiate career that it was highly unlikely that I would ever even play in the NFL. If I did make it to the NFL, the chances of me surviving there was slim to none. Well, I think a large part of that was because I didn't take football serious. So it wasn't until my junior year, I believe, that I started really lifting weights. I mean, I was a knucklehead in college, I'll be very honest. And so once I got drafted, I remember telling my family members and everyone who was there that I didn't want to play football. And one guy said to me, he said, well, Curtis, maybe football is just a vehicle that's going to help you to do all the good that you want to do in your community and, you know, in the country and around the world possibly. So maybe football is just that vehicle. And it was from that moment on that football took on a different purpose. And it gave me that motivation to work hard, to lift weights, to do everything that I needed to do to be successful in the field.
You also realize that your admonition against rolling around with other guys in the dirt is only relevant if they could catch you.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I realized is that I always had an ability to escape with my feet. You know,
Yeah.
Now in the hood, I was escaping from different things, which made football seem kind of easy for me. And you know, again, if you would take the purpose that football served for me, I think I would have walked away from the game that very moment.
So
because it didn't, the fame, the fortune, and all that, it didn't mean enough for me to put my all into the game.
But as a platform, it meant a lot to put your all in.
Yes.
So now you take your platform to New England, and you do what you need to do, which is star. But you're known as someone with the Patriots who would do anything to empower kids and to do the right thing. Story is that you would show up at kids' birthday parties and on and on. Why was that so important to you? You had to excel as a professional, but you also had to give back. Was there a balance?
Yes, I definitely think there's a balance because you can't do everything that someone requests for you to do. But for me, I try to treat every fan, every person that I interact with as though they're the only person that matters for that moment. And a little boy came up to me after one of the practices my rookie year. He said, "Hey, Curtis Martin, can you sign this?" And I signed it. He said, "By the way, I have an invitation to my birthday party that's next week or so, and I'd love for you to come, and I want to invite you." And he gives me the invitation. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, you know what, buddy? If I can make it, I'll be there." And the week came around, and I was just like, you know what? I'm actually free. And I gave that little guy my word, so let me go. And I went, and it was just a big blast for them.
You've actually, over the last hour or two, actually really even been nice to me, which I find hard to believe. And it may be an incredible lapse of judgment. That's your call.
Well, you know, I'm just trying to take it easy on you.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. But it's early in our relationship, I can guarantee you that. So here's the question. 14,101 rushing yards, 3,329 receiving yards, 5 Pro Bowls, and obviously the Hall of Fame in 2012. But the Bart Starr Man of the Year and the Ed Block Courage Award 2001, those latter awards probably mean as much, if not more to you than the numbers.
Yes. I'll tell you this, what they all mean to me, including the Hall of Fame, including going to the Super Bowl, all of those things, what they all mean to me is that doing what I really enjoy doing, what really makes my heart sing is impacting people's lives in a positive way. So for me, every yard that I gained, every touchdown I scored, that just opened up another door for me to reach another person. And so for me, all of that stuff is, I wouldn't say proof because I already know it, but it shows how adamant I was about using football as a vehicle to serve what I believe is a bigger purpose.
So let's talk about those platforms. Curtis Martin Job Foundation, talk about it.
The Job Foundation, it was formed because I grew up with a single parent mother who struggled to just keep clothes on my back and food on the table. I tell a story about when I was 7 years old. I had 6 and 7 years old. I had to stay in the house by myself till 9 or 10 o'clock at night because we couldn't afford a babysitter. And so what I started doing was I would come home from school, and on my way home I would carry groceries, or I would knock on someone's door and ask could I shovel their snow or rake their leaves. And by the time I got home, I had $3 or $4, and I would use that to pay my babysitter. And so I wanted to start something that could help single parent mothers. And that was how the Job Foundation started.
Job Foundation, really important, continuing and ongoing. Surgicorp, talk about that.
Surgicorp is another group that was supported by Job Foundation, and what they do is they go to third world countries and they do surgeries for free. I mean, they'll stay there for 2 days and do 60-some surgeries and maybe even more. But some of the photos and some of the lives that are being changed through Surgicorp is just amazing. I actually even, I had partnered with Mayor Bloomberg in 2006 for homelessness in New York City. So we do a variety of things. I've funded my foundation by myself. Every check that I've ever received from the time I was a rookie, I put 12 to 15% into this foundation. Now I do 20 to 25%. My goal is to live off of half of what I make and give the other half to charity.
So the other piece that we're here for today is the announcement of the field in your growing up community with Dan Towers, the CEO of Group 1001, and the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation. Tell us a little bit about that and how you feel about that.
Well, what's interesting, and I'm very grateful to these guys because, there were times when I wanted to do things before I got into the NFL where, these are desires, just like, wow, I wish I could change this, or I wish I could help in this situation. Well, now, like I said, through using football as a platform, I was able to get on the phone with Dan and say, Dan, listen, I was just here, this little girl got shot, I have to do something about it, can we work on this together? Dan said, sure, Curtis, let me make some calls. And we all got together, and here we are right now in the process of getting ready to build a new field there. And look, it's not the answer to everything, but for me, I just wanted to start doing something. I don't like to keep talking about things and not doing anything. So this is just a start.
Charles Barkley and others say they're not role models. We know that's not necessarily the case, but your foundation is a little bit different because a lot of guys will take money, pay a foundation administrator, take a piece, then find out what worthy causes might look good. Now you're in the opposite direction.
Yeah, well, for me, it's really important to keep my nose to the ground so I can understand what's going on. And I want to be a part of that change. I want to put my money where my mouth is. I want to be interactive. I want to interact with the people. I don't want to just blindly give money to people who I don't know if it's going to the places that it needs to go to. So this way, I know that things are getting done and going in the right places.
You're 45 right now. What are you doing with the final 2/3 of your life?
More of what I've been doing. I'm doing really well. I'm one of the fortunate ones who was able to retire and have a great post-business career. And so, as I said now, my goal in life is I'll spend the rest of my life trying to serve people and help people in any way that I can. And I think being able to use my influence, my resources, my relationships, as well as the finances that I've been able to, gain over a number of years. These are all the different components you need to help impact lives, and I'll do that for the rest of my life.
And you're watching football on a regular basis, I'm sure. You have access to all the NFL guys, owners, and others. Give me your top-line perspective. Is the NFL moving in the right direction? If you had a magic wand, what would you change? Would you kind of be happy with where we are, or would you inspire some changes in certain areas?
Well, the one area, I think the NFL has done great as a business. The one area that I would like to see some improvement on is the relationships between the union and the league, the players and the owners, however you phrase it, but that relationship, because in the future, I believe that there needs to be a partnership. And without a partnership, it concerns me about the direction of the game, because I think we all need to work together to utilize this stage that we all have to do a whole lot of good. And I don't want us to diminish all that we can do through the game of football. I think football has been good to all of us who have played the game, and I think we've been good to the game. But I think there needs to be a collective.
We're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor.
Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow, the sports professor. We're going to rewind our featured interview, reset the show a little bit, and pick up from there. Here's Rick Horrow.
I wanted to start doing something. I don't like to keep talking about things and not doing anything. So this is just a start.
Charles Barkley and others say they're not role models. We know that's not necessarily the case, but your foundation is a little bit different because a lot of guys will take money, pay a foundation administrator, take a piece, then find out what worthy causes might look good. Now you're in the opposite direction.
Yeah, well, for me, it's really important to keep my nose to the ground so I can understand what's going on. And I want to be a part of that change. I want to put my money where my mouth is. I want to be interactive. I want to interact with the people. I don't want to just blindly give money to people who I don't know if it's going to the places that it needs to go to. So this way, I know that things are getting done and going in the right places.
You're 45 right now. What are you doing with the final 2/3 of your life?
More of what I've been doing. I'm doing really well. I'm one of the fortunate ones who was able to retire and have a great post-business career. And so, as I said, now my goal in life is I'll spend the rest of my life trying to serve people and help people in any way that I can. And I think being able to use my influence, my resources, my relationships, as well as the finances that I've been able to gain over a number of years. These are all the different components you need to help impact lives, and I'll do that for the rest of my life.
And you're watching football on a regular basis, I'm sure. You have access to all the NFL guys, owners, and others. Give me your top-line perspective. Is the NFL moving in the right direction? If you had a magic wand, what would you change? Would you kind of be happy with where we are, or would you inspire some changes in certain areas?
Well, the one area, I think the NFL has done great as a business. The one area that I would like to see some improvement on is the relationships between the union and the league, the players and the owners, however you phrase it, but that relationship, because in the future, I believe that there needs to be a partnership. And without a partnership, it concerns me about the direction of the game, because I think we all need to work together to utilize this stage that we all have to do a whole lot of good. And I don't want us to diminish all that we can do through the game of football. I think football has been good to all of us who have played the game, and I think we've been good to the game. But I think there needs to be a collective effort going forward to really make a difference in the world. And football is the stage that can do that.
And then finally, related to that, you've said a few times that football has, in large part, saved your life. What is it about the power of sports that would and will inspire people to do great by doing good?
Well, again, I think the power of sports is that people love sports, and the NFL is the most watched sport in the world, other than worldwide soccer. And so, I've spoken to a lot of the guys. I've spoken to Roger Goodell, and I know that he really wants to do a lot in communities. I know that they really want to use football as a vehicle also. And I really just want to see this continue to grow. And the reason why I think the partnership is important is because I think that's the only way that it will grow. One of the other things that's really important, other than it being a huge platform for all of us who are involved in this game, whether you're an executive or a player, I think that football can be more than just a huge stage. I think football can be an element of change, not just in communities, but in the lives of the players. I know for me, football was almost like a second parent. It taught me a lot of things that my parents couldn't teach me or didn't even know to teach me. It taught me how to be disciplined. It taught me how to work hard. It taught me how to stay focused. It taught me how to care about my teammates and care about others. There are a lot of life lessons that are very valuable to every man that steps out on that field. And I believe that the NFL, like I say, it goes beyond the stage that it is, and it's the impact that it can have on the individuals, and hopefully that impact can be expressed in the community and in the country.
Curtis Martin, as good as it gets. Be back right after this. Obviously, the world is a better place because Curtis Martin has been in it. He certainly is very important. I consider him to be a classy associate and a friend. Thank you, Curtis, for participating in these interviews and these processes and giving people insight into what you really are made of. Speaking of being made of, how about the Heat? We're ready for a major down under. The Grand Slam notorious Heat, not just at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows later on in the year, but how about in Melbourne in a week when last year's 100-degree Fahrenheit almost heat-stroked a few of the players. The utmost priority called for an overhaul, and they did. The BBC reported that under the new policy, if a reading of 4.0 is recorded on the Australian Open heat stress scale during a men's match, a 10-minute break allowed after the third set. If the reading occurs during a women's junior or singles match, a second or third set 15-minute break, as in wheelchair singles. If a reading of 5 is recorded, the ump and ref can suspend play. Players' well-being and fitness is of particular concern at the Australian Open, as the first-year slam can set the tone for the entire season. Roger Federer ends the year pretty well. The Hopman Cup win and the Australian Open organizers looking forward to once again basking in the reflected glow of the Federer brand. His global appeal makes him a box office dream for tournament organizers. The Hopman Cup organizers and the West Australian government forked out a significant amount to lure the 20-time Grand Slam winner to Perth for the third straight year. The exact amount is understood to reach 7 figures, and the beauty of the 6-time Australian Open champion, according to marketers, is that Federer goes above and beyond what's usually required of sports stars. And as part of his recent obligations, he traveled around 2 hours north of Perth to the Pinnacles, a limestone formation in Nambour National Park, for a photo shoot. A week after Fed posed for the photo, the Australian government claimed that it had been viewed by close to 600 million people. How about that? What a great guy. Let's go to hockey. The NHL wrapped up a big Winter Classic, and they focus now on the All-Star Game in San Jose. Winter Classic this year was the most watched in 4 years and up 20% compared to last year's game, according to Nielsen and Adobe Analytics. Additionally, nominations are officially open for the 5th year of Kraft Hockeyville USA, as hockey communities look for an opportunity to host an NHL preseason game, receive up to $150,000 in rink upgrades from Kraft Heinz, and $10,000 worth of hockey equipment through the NHLPA Goals and Dreams program. And the league unveiled its touchstone events for the 19 and 20 season, including the 2019 Tim Hortons NHL Heritage Classic October 26 in Saskatchewan, the 2020 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, and the 2020 Honda NHL All-Star Game in St. Louis. Meanwhile, the San Jose Sharks ready for their SAP Center second-time All-Star event after a successful one in 1997. NHL, again, really important as far as giving back. Toronto-based Hockey for Youth sends 10 teams to their first pro hockey game. The charitable organization provides new Canadians and low-income youth with the opportunity to play hockey for free, and recently sent 10 participants to experience their first live game when the Toronto Maple Leafs faced the Wild at Scotiabank Arena. According to CBC, all 10 teens are new to Canada and moved last year from Pakistan, Jamaica, Turkey, Syria, Zanzibar, and otherwise. 71% of new Canadians have an interest in playing hockey, but only about 1% gets to try. On average, a playing season in the sport costs roughly $3,700. With the help of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, teams with financial barriers get the chance to participate in the charity 18-week hockey program. After a lot of hard work, participants from all 5 Toronto schools involved in the program will play their first ever tournament this next April. Good for them. How about basketball? Well, giving back
as well, but a different kind of giving back. The NBA, the Players Association, assisting with players to make their transitions. Front Office Sports off the court has said that's the program. It's been in place for just a year. Focuses on themes like mental health, finances, career goals, health and wellness, and philanthropy. Antonio Davis realized there was a gap in the support for players between their playing careers and retirement. So he decided to do something about it. Speaking from his experience as a 13-year NBA veteran, Davis said that most players don't think about their post-playing careers while they're still in the league, and that athletes who are nearing the end of their playing careers feel a mix of emotions. Off the court looks to support them through it all. And while most sports initiatives focus on bettering the communities around athletes, off the court takes an internal look at the wellness of ex-players so they can make a change once they step away from the game. And when you think about it as well, there are also individual players that are doing some cool things. Stephan Curry auctions off his moon landing shoes for STEM education. Less than a month ago, he playfully claimed on a podcast that a person hadn't landed on the moon, and that quickly went viral. Promptly, NASA invited him for an informational tour of the Johnson Space Center during his next visit to Houston. While the Golden State Warriors don't visit Texas till March, Curry donned a special NASA-themed pair of kicks against the visiting Rockets last week, and after a tough 135-134 overtime beating, Curry signed the shoes and auctioned them off on eBay through a collaboration between DonorsChoice.org, Donors Choose, and the Stephan and Alicia Curry Family Foundation. Proceeds benefit science, tech, engineering, and mathematics. The upcoming auction marks the third straight season that Curry has taken game-worn sneakers to raise money. Like other athletes, including IndyCar driver Zach Veach, Curry helping to promote STEM learning through charity. Finally, in the NBA, let's just realize that players don't have it always easy. How about Enes Kanter? Last week, he said he would not accompany the Knicks to London to play the Washington Wizards on January 17 because he feared retaliation for his very public opposition to the Turkish president. In May 2017, Kanter detained for several hours at an airport in Romania after the Turkish government canceled his travel documents. Later in 2017,
we're going to take a short break, but when we return, more Rick Horrow, the sports professor. Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard with Rick Horrow. We pick up right where we left off.
Turkey's state-run news bureau reported that prosecutors were seeking to jail Kanter for 4 years or more on charges that he insulted the Turkish prime minister on social media. Kanter told the New York Times, "It's pretty sad that all this stuff affects my career in basketball because I want to be out there and help my team win." The Knicks currently at the bottom of the NBA's Eastern Conference, and the Wizards are 5 games behind Miami in the Southeast. With or without Kanter, it's not clear the matchup's going to do much to further the NBA's goal of establishing more of a fan base in the UK. Certainly some controversy. Finally, kudos to the MLS. 2018, a big year for them. According to John Wall Street, clubs grew revenue about 7.5% year over year to $34.5 million. The league set a record for paid attendance at $7.5 million, and its 23 teams recorded a new high with an average price of a ticket sold $30. According to Forbes, MLS club valuations increased 7.5% year over year to $240 million. Atlanta, the league's most valuable franchise, worth an estimated $330 million, and Atlanta FC, Atlanta United, won the 2018 MLS Cup Championship and leads the league in attendance. Another potential headache MLS resolved right at the end of 2018. NFL Cleveland Browns owners G.D. and Jimmy Haslam agreed to assume an ownership position in MLS to operate the Columbus Crew, guaranteeing the club would not relocate to Austin, Texas, or elsewhere. And while terms of the deal not announced, the Haslams are in a much better position to absorb the Crew after the Browns posted the best season of the beleaguered franchise since returning to the NFL in 1999. Well, that's it for Beyond the Scoreboard this week. We'd like to thank Curtis Martin for his gracious time in the interview. Like to thank Tanner Simpkins and Reed Weber and Dan Martin for putting the podcast together. We'd like thank you for listening and watching, and joining us next week when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.